It was early summer in Ahmedabad, and June 12, 2025, dawned with a harsh, blinding sun, a furnace-like sky above Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. Inside the terminal, passengers of Air India flight AI-171, a Boeing 7878 Dreamliner registered VTANB, waited in the sweltering heat. Among them were families clutching boarding passes, students laden with textbooks and dreams, business travelers in crisp shirts preparing for conference calls, and tourists eager for Europe's cooler shores. Smiles, conversations, and shifting suitcases created a soundtrack of hope. No one foresaw the tragedy about to unfold. At 1:38 p.m., the aircraft began its takeoff roll. Engines hummed with power, tires roared down the runway, and for a fleeting moment, the flight seemed to rise like any other. Then came the shift. Instead of climbing steadily into the heat-soaked sky, VTANB remained ominously low. Radar data later confirmed it reached only about 625 feet, far below safe altitude. Inside the cockpit, alarms sounded, voices blurred. Outside, grainy CCTV footage captured the plane gliding over rooftops with landing gear still extended and flaps locked down, a scene so haunting it would chill aviation experts for years. One air traffic controller later confessed that a pulse of dread ran through him at that moment. In the opposite direction, residents of Meghani Nagar were finishing their afternoon meals. It was the lunch hour inside the boys' hostel at BJ Medical College, a time filled with chatter and clinking dishes. When the Dreamliner streaked overhead, there was no roar of triumph, but an eerie whine. The whumped whine of a machine struggling for air. No one understood its meaning. Then, as the plane's trajectory skewed, a wave of foreboding swept through the campus. A few students looked up, mouths open, sensing something was terribly wrong. And then, in less than a heartbeat, the aircraft crashed through dorm windows, metal screaming and glass exploding outward like deadly hailstones. The impact was beyond human comprehension. The fuel tanks ruptured. Over 100,000 liters of jet fuel ignited instantly. In an unforgiving instant, flames engulfed the dormitory, sending torrents of black smoke skyward. Classrooms burst into flame, corridors collapsed, and walls caved inward. Screams of terror ripped through the campus and echoed down narrow lanes. Ground trembled under collapsing debris. Fires surged as if alive. Entire sections of the campus vanished, consumed in brilliant, merciless fire. On board, the disaster claimed all but one life. 241 souls, men, women, children, grandparents, perished within seconds. Those who had shared their final smiles at boarding gates were gone. No farewell, no last embrace. Identification would come later, through numbers, dental records, DNA, after the grief-stricken families had flown in, hoping for living signs, only to be handed death certificates instead. But within that blackened mass of mangled metal and burning debris, something unimaginable occurred. A man stumbled free. His body was battered, bloodied, clothes scorched, but he was alive. British Indian passenger Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, seat 11A by an emergency exit, seemed to escape mere fractions before the crash. Some say he jumped, others believe he was thrown clear. Whatever the truth, he emerged into chaos. The sky was choking with smoke, the air heavy with screams, the ground littered with bodies and shattered buildings. He wandered in shock until someone found him, a blessing amid ruin. Scores of ground victims were lost too. 28 lives extinguished. Within the hostel, mostly young medical students just beginning their journeys, dreams still unwritten. 60 more were wounded. Some with burns so severe doctors had to amputate limbs. Others sustained broken bones, fractured hands, battered faces. Volunteers and surviving students rushed to help, dragging bodies under smoke-darkened hallways, while parents wailed upon arrival, calling out names into the stale, hot air. By evening, The firefight was fierce. Firefighters advanced through heat that scorched oxygen masks. Hoses hissed, and the roar of flames clashed with the cries of survivors. A chorus of sobs rose from the crowd of gathered onlookers. Family in check, officials in somber lines, young children searching for older siblings among the rubble. The sky was smudged gray and red with the day's horror. News of the crash reached national and international stage via glowing smartphones and rolling broadcasts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, with a voice trembling under the weight of the day, expressed grief and solidarity. UK PM Keir Starmer offered support for the lone survivor and condolences for families. King Charles called it a time of national sorrow, sympathizing with India's loss. Flags over government buildings, consulates, and embassies were lowered to half-staff. Tens of thousands lit candles in public prayer, standing in silence at dusk. Online posts paired red photographs with the hashtag Ahmedabad Remembers, as strangers wrote letters of solace to broken families. Air India CEO Campbell Wilson arrived at the crash site the next morning, his face drawn and fatigued. With Pixar blue skies behind him and echoing yet hollow winds, he spoke of the airline's shattered soul. "We mourn every life lost," he said. "We are here to uncover the truth." Boeing responded in kind, pledging technical support. The 787 Dreamliner, once a paragon of modern, safe flight, was now at the center of global scrutiny. An aircraft type with 14 years of perfect safety had suddenly faltered. Investigators arrived soon, forming a cordon around what remained of the aircraft and dormitory. The Indian Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau was joined by US FAA and NTSB teams, Boeing engineers, and GE aerospace technicians. They retrieved both black boxes from the wreckage, locked in evidence logs, and carried in steel cases to labs in Delhi. As analysts began the painstaking process of decoding every millisecond, experts speculated on what could have gone wrong. An electrical glitch that prevented the flaps and gear from retracting, a checklist not followed. A sudden hydraulic system failure. Some whispered about software bugs, others about pilot confusion in an emergency. Official verdicts would take months, but the grief was already final. In the days that followed, DNA specialists worked around clock in an improvised morgue set up in a campus auditorium. Relatives waited in dread, opening faint zippered bags with fingers that shook. Each name called out was a new silence, a fresh collapse of hope. In hospital wards, families stared at their loved ones, tightly bandaged, eyes blank, while doctors replaced missing limbs and stressed wounds. Vishwash, miraculously alive, became the center of press attention. He spoke once, voice quiet, telling how he just made it out. He was taken to a secure hospital room, where he remained unconscious for several days before waking to face what he'd lost and what he'd survived. The dormitory itself remained suspended in time, a death site frozen in embers, embanked by cordons, rescue vehicles, and hushed chants. In the wake of the tragedy, students from 9 countries lost peers. Some never entered exam halls again. The college closed indefinitely as trauma counselors arrived to help them cope. In the weeks that followed, silent vigils were held in the Y courtyard, rows of candles, flowers, tiny portraits of smiling young faces who would never walk its halls again. And far beyond Ahmedabad, families received final correspondence. Emails marked, return to sender, postcards unopened, boarding, passes left unused. Photos came back in sealed envelopes, unread until they were found in drawers. Voices that once laughed during booking calls were silent forever. Every lost person had someone, wife, father, son, daughter, mentor, now living with a void as Suwas. The sun set on July 12th. 6 weeks later, Ahmedabad's sky was calm again. But the scars, on buildings, on ground, in hearts, remained. The 787's black boxes revealed fragments of alarm tones and pilot words. Investigators slowly pieced together the chain of events. A sudden hydraulic fault? A checklist oversight? Whatever the root cause, it could not bring back the hundreds of lives sheared away. The crash of Flight AI-171 stands as India's worst aviation disaster since the 1985 Kanishka bombing. It was more than a mechanical failure or pilot error. It was a shattering rupture of daily life. Lives that had meals before, classes after, futures planned. Now, those futures became lines in data tables, names on memorial walls, memories whispered in candlelight. And somewhere in Delhi, investigators watch monitors flicker. Somewhere in London, a single casket lies waiting for final rites. Somewhere in Ahmedabad, survivors learn to live with absence, tracing the edges of loss in the shadows. And the Dreamliner Cielo, no longer perfect, rests on a heap of twisted wreckage, carrying a story written in fire, sorrow, and vanished tomorrows.